for yourself. I still can't believe I got 9 tablets of 100 milligram generic Viagra for just $7. I feel like I'm in my 20s again. My wife even told me, "You're like a whole new man." Don't wait as long as I did. It is the best $7 I have ever. Or go to grabfridayplans.com right now to get yours before this deal runs out.
You had offered a 15-point plan to Iran. Did they ever come back?
Yeah, they came back on the 15-point plan. They gave us most of the points. Why wouldn't they?
You make it sound like they made some concessions. Can you identify those?
Well, they're agreeing with us on the plan. I mean, we asked for 15 things, and for the most part, we're going to be asking for a couple of other things. And we're having very good meetings, both directly and indirectly, and I think we're getting a lot of very important points.
President Trump last night on Air Force One with a positive outlook on negotiations with Iran. It comes as Pakistan says it will soon host talks between the two countries. The question is, are U.S. and Iranian officials actually willing to meet with each other? Meanwhile, there's new reporting that the Pentagon is preparing for ground operations in Iran that could last for weeks. The question is, how close is President Trump to escalating this into a full-scale invasion? Plus, lawmakers left Washington on Friday without a deal to fund the Department of Homeland Security, with no plans to return to D.C. for the next 2 weeks. The question is, will Trump's executive order to pay TSA employees bring enough of them back and cut down the long security lines at airports? It is way too early for this. Good morning and welcome to Way Too Early, the show that still can't believe this shot went in. We will have the full highlights ahead in sports. I'm Simone Sanders Townsend, in for Ali Vitali on this Monday, March 30th. We'll start with the news. Fighting continues throughout the Middle East this morning, now more than 1 month into the war with Iran. Pakistan says it is prepared to host talks between the United States and Iran in the coming days, but the warring parties did not confirm any participation, and the two sides appear to remain far apart. Speaking to reporters last night aboard Air Force One, President Trump said Iran has agreed to most of the 15-point list of demands for the U.S. to end the conflict, without providing details. Iran's state-run media has reported that Tehran had rejected the ceasefire proposal. Trump also said Iran agreed to allow 20 more oil cargo ships to pass through the Strait of Hormuz, the crucial shipping waterway, as oil prices continue to rise. The president is framing that as a sign negotiations are underway, but Tehran is telling a different story. The Speaker of Iran's parliament over the weekend accused the U.S. of putting on a front of diplomacy while, quote, secretly planning a ground invasion. According to state media, he added that Iranian forces were, quote, waiting for the arrival of American troops on the ground to set them on fire and punish their regional partners forever. This disconnect continues to spill out onto the battlefield. Israel and Iran traded strikes this morning as sirens sounded near Israel's main nuclear research center, and military infrastructure was targeted in Tehran. The Israeli military also said early today it intercepted drones launched from Yemen, as the Iran-backed Houthis there have now joined the conflict. President Trump, however, continued to signal some optimism last night while insisting he has already achieved regime change in Iran.
I think we'll make a deal with them, pretty sure. Whether it's possible, we won't. But we've had regime change, if you look already, because the one regime was decimated, destroyed. They're all dead. The next regime is mostly dead. And the third regime, we're dealing with different people than anybody's dealt with before. It's a whole different group of people. So I would consider that regime change. And frankly, they've been very reasonable. So I think we've had regime change.
Sir, could you foresee a deal in Iran this upcoming week?
I do see a deal in Iran, yeah.
Mr. President.
Could be soon, too.
Let's bring in MS Now White House reporter Laura Barron-Lopez. Laura, the president has repeated the comments about regime change a number of times. But despite his comments, the regime remains in place. Now, the leaders have changed, but the regime is still there. So what do you make of the president's comments here?
I think that the president for a while now has wanted this to be like Venezuela. And that also is not a regime change, right? He wanted to go in, make it as clean in his view as possible to then get what he wants out of the country. Now, that isn't what Iran is shaping up to be. And that's what multiple people and advisors had told him, especially the military leaders had said that it was not going to necessarily look like Venezuela. So it still is the same regime in place. Now, the question is whether or not it's a regime, for the president at least, this is the question, whether or not it's a regime that gives him what he wants. And so you're seeing that he is moving troops into the region at a steady pace to give himself those options to potentially launch the ground invasion that you were referring to.
You know, it's so interesting because the comparisons between Venezuela and Iran and, you know, our reporting definitely underscores that that is what the president thought this would be. The United States government, I remember during the Venezuela operation, said it was a law enforcement operation, not a military operation, obviously very different than what we are seeing in Iran. Look, there have been no announcements by the White House or by the Iranians, frankly, about a face-to-face meeting between Iranian and American negotiators. What more do we know about these negotiations that the president is touting? Obviously, somewhere, somebody is talking to someone.
Yeah, and the question is, who exactly is the president talking to? Who is making some of these promises that he claims they appear to be getting close to on where this is going to end up? The president continually says that he's talking to people, but then talks about how the leaders are constantly changing and they're trying to figure out who's in charge there. Now, of course, there are intermediaries. There are Pakistani intermediaries. There are other countries that are involved trying to get the Iran and U.S. on the same table. But what seems to be emerging as one of these big sticking points, which was even before the war, is that nuclear stockpile, the enriched uranium, the 1,000 tons or so of it. And so that was something that, according to a diplomat that spoke to us before the war started, as well as a senior administration official, had told MS Now at the time that Iran was willing to give up those enriched uranium stockpiles. Now, the question is, if that isn't going to happen, is that what is going to push the president to put boots on the ground?
It's such an important question. Meanwhile, the Department of Homeland Security's ongoing shutdown has entered uncharted territory, officially becoming the longest partial government shutdown in U.S. history. Negotiations to reopen the department hit a major setback on Friday after House Republicans rejected a bipartisan Senate bill that would have funded a majority of agencies through September. House Republicans instead chose to pass a short-term funding bill Friday night that would fully fund ICE and Customs and Border Patrol, a measure that has no viable path in the United States Senate. Democrats in the upper chamber have repeatedly rejected similar proposals, maintaining they won't approve more funding for immigration and customs enforcement without reforms. Lawmakers in both the House and the Senate have adjourned for a 2-week recess through April 13th with no imminent plans to reconvene, leaving a solution to the shutdown at an impasse until next month. Meanwhile, TSA officers could begin receiving paychecks as early as today. That's according to the Department of Homeland Security. Agents have been working without pay for weeks due to the partial government shutdown. President Trump on Friday signed an executive order instructing DHS to pay TSA employees. Now, this move comes as frustrated travelers nationwide continue to face long, slow-moving lines at airport security checkpoints. Laura, the White House has said they stepped in here. Now, that memo that the president put out directed the OMB and the Department of Homeland Security to identify funds that were basically tangentially connected to TSA, use those funds to pay TSA agents and the TSA workers. And I would also argue it said give them back pay. So all of the money that they are due up until this point. We don't know how that's coming together. If you have some additional reporting, we would love to hear that. But if the president could have done this before, why did he wait so long?
Well, that's the big question, right? Which is, I mean, it appears as though some of that funding could very well end up coming from the big, beautiful bill that they passed last year. But again, we don't have all the official details on that from the White House yet. But that takes a big point of leverage off the table, which is typically when there are these battles and the two sides can't come together. You know, you would think that the TSA would be the leverage point for the president, which is he's saying there is pain here at airports. TSA agents are not being paid. I need you Democrats to come to the table and to work with me. But now that he's funded that, what leverage does the president have when he's working with Democrats who say, well, you're already paying for TSA agents? ICE and DHS, CBP agents have money also from that big, beautiful bill that funded ICE and CBP to historic levels. And so there's really no incentive to necessarily get Democrats to say, OK, we're going to fund all of DHS, including ICE and CBP, which politically right now is not popular.
Not popular at all. Important to note that Senate passed bill. It did pay TSA workers. MS Now White House reporter Laura Barron-Lopez, thank you so much. Coming up, what President Trump is saying about letting a Russian oil tanker reach Cuba as that country continues to see island-wide blackouts as well as school and hospital closures. Also ahead, we'll take a look at the massive No Kings protests that took place in cities across the country on Saturday. Those stories and more when we come right back.
Simone Sanders Townsend and I have known each other for more than a decade, tussling over politics and policy when she worked in the White House and I reported on it.
And now we're friends and colleagues, and on our podcast, Clock It, we are positioning ourselves at the intersection of culture and politics.
Clock It is where we talk about what we see and hear in the news, so you can start to clock it too.
Clock It with Simone and Eugene. Listen now. New episodes drop Thursdays.
The human brain is truly incredible. It's a complex network of 100 billion neurons that create cognitive functions surpassing that of supercomputers. Our brain controls our thoughts, our emotions, and our movements. Prevagen contains apoaquarin, originally discovered in jellyfish, and is designed specifically for the brain to help keep it amazing, so that we can continue to live our best life. Prevagen, for your brain.
Tap into the data you need to see the market your way. Introducing the new Power E-Trade Pro, your ultimate desktop trading platform. It gives savvy traders like you nearly unlimited customization with up to 120 tools across 6 workspaces, plus automatic pattern recognition and education built right into the charts. Finally, a platform that thinks like you, from the original place to trade online.
After my accident, I couldn't quite do things like I used to. You know, my daughter introduced Boost to me. I love the support, and when I got into martial arts, we got in it together. A real fight deserves a real boost.
This is the story of the one knows the unexpected can put everything on the line. But with a teammate like Granger, she's confident that she will always win the day. Call, click, or just stop by. Granger, for the ones who get it done.
Introducing Stogo, the only apparel with adjustable medical-grade support, engineered with high-strength cables that reinforce the body, designed to help you overcome injuries, minimize pain, and regain the confidence to get back out there. Learn more at Stoco.com.
This is Blue Chew Gold, the ultimate 4-in-1 formula, built for strength where it counts. With sildenafil for power, tadalafil for endurance. But gold doesn't stop at blood flow, so we added apomorphine to spark desire and oxytocin to deepen connection. Not just harder, closer. Blue Chew Gold. Take action, get action.
Introducing Stoco, the only apparel with adjustable medical-grade support, engineered with high-strength cables that reinforce the body, designed to help you overcome injuries, minimize pain, and regain the confidence to get back out there. Learn more at Stoco.com.
President Trump says his administration will allow a Russian tanker to deliver crude oil to Cuba. Tracking data shows the tanker loaded with 730,000 barrels of oil was just off the eastern tip of the island last night. It could reach its destination by tonight or tomorrow. Here's what the president had to say about it last night on Air Force One.
Well, we have a tanker out there. We don't mind having somebody get a boatload because they have to survive. It wouldn't bother me.
That report is true as far as you know.
Well, I would say, I told them, if a country wants to send some oil into Cuba right now, I have no problem with it.
Do you worry that helps?
Whether it's Russia or not, what?
Do you worry that helps Vladimir Putin, though?
Doesn't help him. He loses one boatload of oil. That's all it is. It's fine. If he wants to do that, and if other countries want to do it, it doesn't bother me much. It's not going to have an impact. Cuba's finished. They have a bad regime. They have very bad and corrupt leadership. And whether or not they get a boat of oil, it's not going to matter. I'd prefer letting it in, whether it's Russia or anybody else, because the people need heat and cooling and all of the other things that you need.
The Trump administration has been essentially blocking Cuba from receiving oil since January after removing the leader of Venezuela, Cuba's longtime supplier of oil. President Trump also issued an executive order threatening tariffs on any country that delivers oil to the island. Cubans have been living through multiple island-wide blackouts in recent weeks as a lack of oil has impacted basic resources and crippled medical care for the roughly 10 million people living there. A victim of Jeffrey Epstein has filed a class action lawsuit on behalf of herself and other survivors against the Trump administration and Google over the disclosure of personal information found in the release of the Epstein files. The lawsuit claims the Justice Department, quote, outed around 100 survivors of Epstein's abuse in late 2025 and early 2026, and that even after the government acknowledged its mistake, online entities like Google have continuously republished the information. The lawsuit also alleges the U.S., quote, intentionally prioritized volume and speed of public disclosure over the safety and privacy of Epstein survivors, adopting a release now, retract later approach. And that release of victim information was, quote, retaliatory. The plaintiff is looking to force Google to remove and stop displaying victim information, along with minimum damages of at least $1,000 per survivor. Representatives from Google and the Trump administration did not immediately respond to requests for comment. Organizers say more than 8 million people marched in No Kings protests across the country on Saturday, making it among the largest protests in American history. That equates to more than 1 in every 50 U.S. residents joining a rally and filling the streets for the movement's third major national day of action. More than 3,300 events were held in all 50 states and around the world to denounce the Trump administration's policies, including on immigration, the economy, and the war in Iran. One focal point, the protests in Minnesota's Twin Cities. An estimated 200,000 people gathered for the flagship rally in St. Paul, honoring the memories of Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And while largely peaceful, police in Los Angeles say they had to deploy tear gas and arrested 74 people for failing to disperse after the No Kings rally there. Still ahead, we'll turn to sports with highlights from that thrilling game between UConn and Duke. Did you see it? Along with a look at where things stand in both the men's and women's NCAA tournaments. But first, we want to know why you are awake. Email your reasons to waytooearly@ms.now or tell me on social media at Simone D. Sanders using the hashtag #WayTooEarly. We'll read our favorite answers later in the show.
I never thought I would develop shingles. I was wrong. I didn't know that 99% of people over 50 already have the virus that causes shingles, and it could reactivate.
Don't learn the hard way like I did. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
Planning to move? Choose Pods, the most awarded container moving company. Pods brings the container to you. Then we'll take it to your new home or store it at a secure Pod storage center. And you don't have to do the driving. Trust Pods with your next move. Book at pods.com.
Don't let living with cancer define you. Discover an injectable immunotherapy, Opdivo Qvantig, for certain previously treated adults whose kidney cancer has spread. A chance to live longer, a treatment that's faster. Unlike an infusion that takes 30 minutes, Opdivo Qvantig lets you receive treatment quickly in as little as 3 minutes. Opdivo Qvantig can cause your immune system to harm healthy parts of your body during and after treatment. These problems can be severe and lead to death. See your doctor right away if you have a cough, chest pain, shortness of breath, irregular heartbeat, diarrhea, constipation, severe stomach pain, severe nausea or vomiting, dizziness, fainting, eye problems, extreme tiredness, changes in appetite, thirst, or urine, rash, itching, confusion, memory problems, muscle pain or weakness, joint pain or fever. Report severe or persistent muscle or joint pain. Tell your doctor if you have myasthenia gravis or Guillain-Barré syndrome. Immune system problems include Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, or lupus. These are not all the possibilities possible side effects. Tell your doctor about all medical conditions, including immune or nervous system problems, if you've had or plan to have an organ or stem cell transplant or receive chest radiation. Opdivo Qvantig can harm your unborn baby.
A chance to live longer, a treatment that's faster.
Ask your doctor about Opdivo Qvantig. See OpdivoQvantig.com for more information.
The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor tracks your glucose in real time. And over time, it can help lower your A1C. This is progress. Learn more and try for free at freestylelibre.us.
How do you spell relief?
For heartburn, ROLAIDS.
For indigestion, ROLAIDS.
For fast relief,
ROLAIDS.
Rolaids spells relief.
During my recovery, the only thing I could think about was getting back to playing. Boost gave me the fuel to get back on the stage. Music is life. A real comeback deserves a real boost.
Is your bath old and outdated, maybe even unsafe? In just one day, Jacuzzi gives you the safety you need and the personal style you want, all at a price you'll love. So your bathroom can go from this to this, this to this, or even this to this. And right now, we're waiving all installation costs and offering no interest or payments for a year.
Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-384-9078.
One seed Arizona in the next round after the Wildcats eliminated second-seeded Purdue. The men's Final Four tips off this Saturday. Meanwhile, the Duke women are also done for the season after falling to UCLA in their Elite Eight matchup yesterday. Trailing at the break for just the second time this season, the top-seeded Bruins rallied in the second half for a 70-58 victory. They joined number one overall seeded UConn in the next round. The Huskies took down sixth-seeded Notre Dame 70-52 yesterday to reach the women's Final Four for the 25th time under head coach Gino Auriemma. Their opponents will be decided tonight as the women's Elite Eight wraps up with second-seeded Michigan against top-seeded Texas and number 3 seed TCU against top-seeded South Carolina. It's a game to watch, folks. Turning now to Major League Baseball. We'll start in Miami with the Marlins trailing the Colorado Rockies by 1 run in the bottom of the 9th inning.
The tying run at second base with 2 out in the bottom of the 9th. Rockies trying to salvage the series. Casey swings. Casey hits it in the air. Casey to deep right. We're going home.
Owen Casey delivers a 2-run walk-off homer for Miami to complete a sweep of the Rockies for Miami's first 3-0 start to the season since 2009. They joined just 2 other unbeaten MLB teams after the first weekend of play, both of which belong to the American League East. The New York Yankees after a sweep of the San Francisco Giants on the road, and the Toronto Blue Jays, which set a league record with 50 strikeouts at home against the Athletics, the most ever recorded over the first 3 games of a season. Finally, folks, we head to the PGA Links in Texas and an emotional win yesterday for Gary Woodland at the Houston Open. Woodland's 5-stroke victory marks his first title on the tour since undergoing surgery in September of 2023 to remove a lesion on his brain. The win also makes him eligible for the Masters, now just 2 weeks away. So emotional. Time now for the forecast, folks. Let's bring in MS Now weather reporter Moses Small. Moses?
Hey, Simone, good morning. We are starting the week off right. We're noticing this pattern where over the next few days, the extreme heat around the country is shifting from the southwest toward the east. That means it's going to feel like spring in New York. We're going to reach all the way up into the mid-60s. For the D.C. area, looking at highs closer to 70 degrees. But if you're in the middle of the country, it will be pretty hot. I'm looking at highs in the 80s for most of Texas and even a little bit north of there. And we will see some showers moving in and out. If you're in D.C., you might want an umbrella today. You could see a few raindrops anywhere from the morning commute into the early afternoon. Then for New York, we could see a few raindrops later. That's going to be primarily for the evening. Not a bad idea to pack an umbrella if you're going to head home for your evening commute. And then the one place I'm going to watch the next couple days in severe weather is over here in the Midwest. There's this little risk area. Storm Prediction Center puts the risk at 2 out of 5 from Milwaukee to eastern Iowa. Could see some isolated severe thunderstorms there. But the bigger concern here is going to be hail. 2-inch diameter hail is pretty big. That's bigger than a golf ball coming down. So in all these areas for today, once that heating really gets going late afternoon, early evening, in all these places, I would watch for things like dents in the cars, potentially a cracked windshield. That size of hail is really not fun to deal with. But I'll just bring it back to this. If you're in the Northeast, you're really not worried about that. All I'm looking forward to is high as much as 67 for New York, 68 for D.C. This is a good sign. I'm even more excited for the highs for the next couple days, but I'm going to save that for tomorrow's forecast.
All right. Maybe you could tell me something about that pollen count tomorrow. MS Now weather reporter Moses Smalls, thank you. Still ahead, we'll take a look at what President Trump is saying about wanting to take the oil in Iran, amid new reporting about the Defense Department preparing for weeks of possible ground operations. Way Too Early is coming right back.
Feel the power of Osteo Biflex. Taken every day, it's clinically shown to improve joint comfort in 7 days, with significant improvement over time.
New Sensodyne Clinical Repair is absolutely amazing. When your teeth are sensitive, they need special care. New Sensodyne Clinical Repair creates a protective shield over those exposed areas that can help repair sensitive areas of teeth after 60 seconds. I recommend Sensodyne Clinical Repair.
Lily doesn't play like she's 62. She plays like you owe her something. And with Ensure Max Protein, she always collects.
Told you she still plays.
You're in your prime, so keep it that way. Insure yourself.
Daniel's tea party is drifting through the sky. This is wonderful news because he's sleeping well and dreaming thanks to his Inspire implant, a proven sleep apnea treatment when CPAP doesn't work. Learn more and view safety info at inspiresleep.com.
When COPD tried to stop you, you kept going. Breztri, a 3-in-1 inhaler. Better breathing starting within 5 minutes and helps prevent flare-ups. Breztri won't replace a rescue inhaler for sudden breathing problems. It is not for asthma. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition or high blood pressure before taking it. Don't take Breztri more than prescribed. Breztri may increase risk of thrush, pneumonia, and osteoporosis. Call your doctor if worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain occur. Ask your doctor about Breztri.
Ooh, that new Cologuard Plus test. 10 out of 10. His no prep says I'm ready when you are.
Now I detect 95% of colon cancers, similar to colonoscopy.
The Cologuard Plus test is not for those at high risk. False positive and negative results may occur. Ask your provider or request Cologuard Plus online.
Today we're unboxing Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear. Wow! These wavy edges tear so much better than ordinary squares. And it's way softer. Charmin Ultra Soft Smooth Tear, definitely recommend. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Introducing Stogo, the only apparel with adjustable medical-grade support, engineered with high-strength cables that reinforce the body, designed to help you overcome injuries, minimize pain, and regain the confidence to get back out there. Learn more.
It's sex. There's smooth as sex, loud as sex, and sweet sex. There's shower sex, quickie sex, car sex, VR sex? Oh yeah. Group sex, solo sex, phone sex. There's good sex, great sex, and there's better sex with Blue Chew.
Introducing Stogo, the only apparel with adjustable medical-grade support, engineered with high-strength cables that reinforce the body, designed to help you overcome injuries, minimize pain, and regain the confidence to get back out there. Learn more at Stogo.com.
Morning Joe, weekdays 6 to 10 on MS Now.
As the Golf Now spokesgopher, I love this app. But what I really like is to get out there and spread those good golf vibes.
Jeremy, you're missing closer every day. Life short, swing hard, boys. Captain Hook!
Get your golf on now with Golf Now.
Welcome back to Way Too Early. It is 5:30 on the East Coast, 2:30 out west. I'm Simone Sanders Townsend in for Ali Vitali. In a new interview with the Financial Times, President Trump said he would like to take the oil in Iran, and added that he's weighing whether to seize Karg Island, which is responsible for more than 90% of the country's oil exports. He said, quote, "To be honest with you, my favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran, but some stupid people back in the U.S. say, why are you doing that? But they're stupid people." When it comes to Karg Island, the president said, maybe we take it, maybe we don't. We have a lot of options. He added that if the United States were to take the island, it would mean we had to be there for a while. Trump told the Financial Times the U.S. has already bombed 13,000 targets in Iran and that there are about 3,000 targets remaining. He also reiterated that a deal with Iran, quote, could be made fairly quickly. Meanwhile, the Department of Defense is reportedly preparing for weeks of ground operations in Iran for what could become a dangerous new phase of the war should President Trump choose to escalate. Now, that's according to two officials who spoke to the Washington Post. Those officials said any potential operation would fall short of a full-scale invasion. It could involve raids carried out by a mix of special operations forces and conventional infantry troops. It comes as several hundred special forces, including Army Rangers and Navy SEALs, have joined the military forces already positioned in the Middle East. They have not been assigned specific missions. However, the buildup is designed to provide options for the White House, two military officials tell the New York Times. Now, the paper reports that there are now more than 50,000 American troops in region, but that number, experts caution, is still far too small for any major land operation. Joining us now, staff writer at The Atlantic covering national security and the Defense Department, Nancy Youssef. Nancy, we were just chatting in the break. What do you make of this continued buildup of U.S. troops in the region, reporting on possible ground operations in Iran? I mean, you've got these comments from Iran's parliament speaker warning the U.S. against this. I mentioned it earlier in the show. It doesn't feel like de-escalation.
That's right. So the question becomes what they're there for. Mm-hmm. If they're there to go and take Karg Island, for example, which, as you noted, is responsible for 90% of Iran's oil exports, you'll now have troops very near the Iranian border. In the short term, that leads to a spike in oil prices because of the effect it has on the economy. And it's not clear that ships will feel more confident transiting those waters if there are ground operations happening between U.S. and Iranian forces. And most importantly, it puts U.S. troops in harm's way because Iran will be in a position to launch drone attacks towards those troops. If the aim is to open the strait, it's not clear that those troops can do it in a sustained period of time. And as the president himself noted, any kind of operation takes the U.S. outside of that 4 to 6 window that he had originally promised for the scope of this operation. So what it risks is potential escalation, particularly if U.S. troops are put in harm's way, given that Iran would target them, and how the U.S. would respond if that were to happen.
Also important to note, Karg Island not right near the Strait of Hormuz, so there's also that aspect of it. Can we talk about this comment from the president in the Financial Times? The president, he's possibly saying the quiet part out loud about Iran's oil. What did you take away from his answer there? And what actually would seizing Karg Island look like? Because I've spoken to military officials, former and current, who have said it is a massive undertaking and it potentially would make our U.S. service members sitting ducks.
It's a massive operation. You're talking about sending ships in. First of all, they have to kind of fight their way to the island because the Iranians have put mines down. Once there are upwards of 20,000 people living on the island, Iranians living on the island. You're now sending in troops to take potentially oil infrastructure and other infrastructure, and now they have to hold it. And that requires more troops in a sustained period of time. And then operationally, how is it functioning? Because if there are troops there, who's running this? Who's running the oil infrastructure there? Who's maintaining it? And so it just becomes, there's a lot of risks from the minute you start it to the weeks, if not months-long effort to hold it. And as you noted, they would be near Iranian borders where they are launching drones already daily on Israel, on Gulf partners. And the Iranians themselves had said that they would target those troops because for the Iranians, they're trying to raise the cost of this war for the United States and its Gulf partners. the fastest way they would see doing that is to target U.S. forces.
You know, in the Financial Times, the president said that, you know, we could, he would like to, quote, take the oil in Iran. Now, this would be different. In Venezuela, the United States has operationally assumed some control of the oil there because Venezuela's current president has relented and struck a deal with the United States. Taking the oil, would that not require a deal with the Iranian leadership, folks who have, up until this point, have not indicated that they are interested in making any kinds of deals with the Americans?
That's exactly right. They're not going to agree to this. This is not like Venezuela, where there was a willingness to have the United States come in and raise their own revenue. What the Iranians want is sanctions released so that they can retain control and they can benefit economically at a time when their country is hurting so much, so economically. And the United States has already given Iran sanctions relief once. Their aim is to keep the regime intact, a regime that does not want to cooperate with the United States or Israel, and a regime that wants to come out of this war not just intact, but to have some economic benefit that they can show to the Iranian people that there was something that they gained from the weeks-long bombardment that is happening against their country. That does not involve, at this point, a deal with the United States. As it is, they're miles apart in terms of what they're seeking in these negotiations. So to then go to the next level and have some sort of economic cooperation on Iran's most important asset, the asset that they have seen through this war gives them tremendous leverage. It's hard to see at this point.
High stakes, lots of moving parts. Staff writer at The Atlantic, Nancy Youssef, thank you very much. Still ahead, we'll turn to CNBC for a look at what's driving the day on Wall Street, including another hike in oil prices as the war with Iran escalates. We'll dig into the recent moves that are forcing higher costs. Way too early. We'll be right back.
Simone Sanders Townsend and I have known each other for more than a decade, tussling over politics and policy when she worked in the White House and I reported on it.
And on our podcast, Clock It, we are positioning ourselves at the intersection of culture and politics.
Clock It is where we talk about what we see and hear in the news, so you can start to clock it too.
Clock It with Simone and Eugene. New episodes drop Thursdays. For ad-free listening and bonus content, subscribe to MS Now Premium on Apple Podcasts.
It looks like an ordinary staircase, but as you age with occasional nerve discomfort that can feel like stabbing or pins and needles in your hands and feet, sometimes stairs can bring worry. As a retired doctor, now that I'm older myself, I take Nervive. Nervive Nerve Relief has ALA to start reducing occasional nerve discomfort in 7 days. Getting older happens, but living with occasional nerve discomfort doesn't have to. Try Nervive like I did and get your freedom back. Feel alive with Nervive.
We need your help. Go online, call, or scan this code to support WWF's global conservation efforts by symbolically adopting an elephant for only $16 a month. It's just 53 cents a day to protect wildlife and their habitats. Do it in the next 5 minutes, and you'll get this free adoption kit with this plush keepsake. Go online, call, or scan to help make a difference today.
There's a somebody I'm longing to see. I hope that she turns out to be someone who watch over me.
Nature needs us now. Go online, call, or scan to symbolically adopt an elephant for just $16 a month. You'll support WWF's global conservation efforts to protect species and their habitats. Do it in the next 5 minutes, and we'll send you this free adoption kit with this wildlife calendar, a tote bag, and this adorable plush elephant. Families are being torn apart. Go online, call, or scan now.
Time now for business. For that, let's bring in CNBC's Ritika Gupta live from London. Okay, Ritika, what can we expect on Wall Street today ahead of this shortened trading week?
Well, U.S. futures are pointing to a positive start to the trading week. This comes after last week when we saw both the Nasdaq and the Dow actually fall into correction territory. And we're seeing the futures market in Wall Street moving higher even as oil prices rise. We're seeing Brent crude up today. This is as the Middle East war escalates. It's going into its 5th week now. And Brent crude actually heading for its biggest monthly gain ever. Investors are also going to be watching out for some comments from the Fed Governor Jay Powell. He'll be speaking at an event later today. And as you mentioned, of course, it's going to be a shortened trading week with the Good Friday holiday as well.
The Treasury Department is reportedly planning to meet with insurance regulators to discuss the private credit sector. Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the market turmoil from the private credit industry. So the U.S. Treasury, as you mentioned, they're planning some meetings with insurance regulators. This is to get more information when it comes to liquidity, transparency, asset quality. This comes as a lot of those aspects have been in question by investors. Concerns over transparency, the exposure to AI. And we've seen investors been trying to withdraw money from a lot of these big giants, from Apollo to Blackstone to Ares Management, and they've faced unprecedented redemption requests. With many cases, these companies have exercised their rights to block investors from getting their money out. Now, Scott Bessent, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, he has acknowledged the good private credit industry has done. It's aided the U.S. economy. It provided that bridge funding during times of turmoil, the 2008 to 9 financial crisis, as well as during the COVID-19 pandemic when bank lending was in many cases frozen. So he acknowledged that, but at the same time, he wants to try to prevent any financial contagion from these issues developing.
You know, you mentioned AI, and we now know that pharmaceutical giant Eli Lilly has signed a nearly $3 billion deal with an AI drug development company. So what is behind this deal?
Yeah, $2.75 billion deal here. This is, as you mentioned there, to bring AI into drug generation here and bringing those to the global market. So they've reached a deal with, this is a company called Insilico Medicine. This is a Hong Kong company. So they would be working, I mean, those companies have worked together since 2023. Insilico has already developed at least 28 drugs using generative AI tools. That is according to the CEO, saying that nearly half of those are actually at the clinical trial stage. And the CEO says that Eli Lilly actually has its own competitive advantage when it comes to certain aspects of AI. In terms of the terms financing, it says it will give Insilico $115 million up front, with the remainder subject to regulatory and commercial milestones.
All right, we'll leave it there. CNBC's Ritika Gupta, live from London. Thank you very much. Still ahead with no end in sight to the longest partial government shutdown in history. Members of Congress, they are off on a 2-week break. So just how long could we expect this shutdown to last, even as some Republicans are beginning to question their leadership's motives? We'll discuss next on Way Too Early.
Extreme weather moving into the area. Rain, snow, and strong winds. Better stay inside.
This way, let it play, make your head bob. Have the chains in the range, the rest of. New day, make a way, take your best shot. Bang, the bang, 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 we shake it off.
Don't let what's happening outside affect how you feel inside. Pella windows are tested against extreme heat, cold, wind, and rain, so you can protect what matters most.
Eye bags, dark spots, wrinkles.
There's one product that can fight them all.
Only one.
Particle Face Cream.
Particle Face Cream.
Engineered for men, made for our skin.
And backed by science, and it actually works. My eye bags before
This was me, and this is me today.
Dark spots used to be brutal. Now, they're barely there.
My wrinkles were deep. Look at the difference.
I honestly didn't think a cream could do this, and it literally takes 2 minutes a day.
1 minute in the morning.
And 1 minute at night. Super easy.
Super effective.
And compared to everything else I considered, it's actually inexpensive.
It's everything I need
in one bottle.
If you've had enough of those eye bags,
dark spots, wrinkles, there's only one product you need.
Visit ParticleMen.com and use the promo code on your screen to get 25% off, free shipping, and a 30-day money-back guarantee. ParticleMen.com.
This is sex. There's louder sex, shower sex, quickie sex. There's good sex, great sex, and there's better sex with Blue Chew.
Finding a pair of jeans that looks good and feels comfortable is such a hassle. Most clothes use just 1 or 2 measurements. M-Tailor uses 7 or more measurements for the perfect fit. Our tech measures you 20% better than a tailor. We created the InvisiStretch waistband to preserve the classic jeans look while invisibly stretching for comfort. Get custom jeans for just $79 with free shipping and free returns. Download the M-Tailor app or visit mtailor.com.
It started off normal, then everything went sideways.
Honestly, Jimmy got right into the thick of it.
I'm used to being fluffed, but this... Turns out, it's not the thread count, it's how you use it.
I'd be mad if I wasn't so impressed.
As the Golf Now spokesgopher, I love this app. But what I really like is to get out there and spread those good golf vibes.
Jeremy, you're looking closer every day. Life short, swing hard, boys. Captain Hook! Get your golf on now with Golf Now.
As the Golf Now spokesgopher, I love this app. But what I really like is to get out there and spread those good golf vibes.
Jeremy, you're looking closer every day. Life short, swing hard, boys. Captain Hook! Get your golf on now with Golf Now.
We have gotten too used to using shutdowns as a mechanism of getting what we want legislatively. And what that implies is that people like TSA agents or folks that work in the federal government for the Department of Agriculture or so don't get paid when one party throws a tantrum, right? Now, in this case, I happen to believe that the American people, you know, are with the Democratic Party and saying you don't get to act like ICE acted in Minneapolis. But we do need to get away from legislating through shutdown.
That was Democratic Congressman Jim Hines of Connecticut yesterday, saying Congress should move away from using government shutdowns as political leverage. Let's bring in MS Now congressional reporter Michael Chanel. Michael, look, Jim Hines with some very interesting comments. As we mentioned earlier in the show, this partial government shutdown is now the longest in history. You've got some reporting, and you say even some Republicans are expressing concerns over Johnson's plans to keep this thing going. Tell us more.
Yeah, well, essentially, Simone, overnight from Thursday to Friday, that's when senators had clinched this bipartisan deal. Essentially, it would fund DHS through the rest of the fiscal year, except for ICE and except for Border Patrol, 2 areas that Democrats said that they would not fund without substantive reforms. So instead, Republicans essentially said, we aren't going to give you the reforms you want, but as a byproduct, we won't make you fund those 2 agencies that you have said that you are not interested in funding. It was your classic bipartisan deal in the Senate. Both sides can walk away, both parties can walk away saying that they won, and then it went to the House on Friday. And this was ahead of, as you mentioned, Congress leaving for that 2-week break. The thought was that there was some consternation on the far right with this deal. There was some consternation on the far left. Hard right Republicans unhappy that it didn't fund ICE and Border Patrol. Those Democrats on the left unhappy that they didn't get the reforms they wanted. But at the end of the day, there would be a big enough group in the middle that would get this thing over the finish line, as long as Mike Johnson put it on the floor. And then he decided not to put it on the floor. I reported that he had a conference call with his conference behind, privately, and he called this deal a crap sandwich and said that instead the House Republicans would pass an 8-week stopgap to fund DHS into towards the end of May. But during that call, there were a handful of Republicans who expressed concern with this, saying that as a result of this play call, Republicans would end up bearing the brunt of this elongated shutdown, saying that they don't see how folks can win with this and that really Mike Johnson should take take yes when he gets it and take a win where it is, given that Republicans didn't give Democrats those demands and those reforms that they had been asking for weeks. So he did not take that advice. Instead, he went forward with his plan. It passed by the skin of his teeth. And then Congress left, and now we're in this standoff again, presumably for the next 2 weeks, with both sides not in Washington, and this shutdown now the longest in history.
Definitely the longest in history. TSA workers still at this hour not getting paid, although the White House seems to have identified a workaround for that. Here's my question, Michael. When Congress comes back after a 2-week break, is there a belief that for some reason the Senate would take up this now 8-week stopgap measure that the House passed? Or is there a belief that, Speaker Johnson will cave to the pressure and end up passing what the Senate sent down in the first place?
So we'll get the first indication about what happens with the House deal later today, right? The Senate is convening for what's known as a pro forma session. This is essentially just a thing that procedurally the Senate has to do. The House does it as well. There's no business conducted during it. It usually comes and goes with nobody even paying attention. But we expect John Thune to try to seek unanimous consent to pass the House deal that, again, Mike Johnson put on the floor late last week. Now, the way the Senate works is you can do things by unanimous consent if all 100 senators agree. But if there's only one on the Senate floor who objects, that's it. That's the ball game. They have to go through regular order. We have heard from Chuck Schumer. He called this deal dead on arrival. So I think you can assume that there's going to be at least one Democrat on the floor who's going to object to this unanimous consent request, which means that we are likely going to ride through this 2-week recess, and then we'll see what happens when we come back. But frankly, Simone, the urgency to strike a deal and get something done on this DHS shutdown, I believe, is going to be much lower when Congress returns. As you mentioned, TSA agents still not getting paid at this moment, but things are in the works from President Trump's executive order to get them paid. If that pans out as expected, that takes a massive pressure point off the table, right? Throughout this shutdown, which, by the way, began on February 14th, we had been waiting for one of these pressure points, particularly TSA lines, to come to the forefront, to come into play. That has essentially happened, which is why we saw all this movement on Capitol Hill. By now taking that pressure point off the table, it's drastically decreasing the chances and any urgency that lawmakers feel to strike a deal. Hence why a big deal of why they left on Friday, because they knew that this TSA funding was going to come in at some point. So what happens when they return? I genuinely have no idea at this point. But what's so interesting about this funding fight, it's not really Democrats versus Republicans, because as I mentioned, that Senate deal, it was your classic bipartisan deal. Republicans were able to say they didn't give Democrats the reforms. Democrats were able to say we're not funding ICE and Border Patrol, and both sides can go home happy. This is really a Republican versus Republican battle. It's Speaker Johnson versus Leader John Thune. And I'll note they're in drastically different political universes. For example, in the Senate, everything that passes has to be bipartisan. In the House, you can do things by a simple majority. In the House, Mike Johnson has a rambunctious right flank that he has to deal with on almost every vote. In the Senate, it's different. You do have someone like Mike Lee, who's a hardline conservative, but most of the Republicans over there have a little bit more bipartisan in nature as compared to the House. And then in the House, you have that motion to vacate that's just always hanging over Mike Johnson's head. If you ask what that is, well, you can ask former Speaker Kevin McCarthy. It's what lost his job. In the Senate, there's just not a political dynamic like that. Mike Johnson and John Thune coming at these from extremely different perspectives and viewpoints. It's going to be fascinating to see how they work through this rift. But again, this is really some Republican versus Republican controversy right here. That's what it came down to late last week.
2 weeks. People are not being funded. TSA, Coast Guard. Michael Chanel, I know you don't have a crystal ball, but I feel so much better having you explain it all. MS Now congressional reporter, thank you very much. A quick programming note, tomorrow on Morning Joe, Ali Vitali sits down with House Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi for an exclusive interview. They'll discuss the handling of the DHS shutdown and reflect on Pelosi's final months in Congress and her history-making role as the first female Speaker of the House. Earlier in the show, we asked you, why are you awake? Damon emails in and says, I'm an EMT on the night shift, and I catch up on my sleep today. I wake up very early because my body's on a terrible sleep schedule. I understand. Sharon sends along this photo and writes, I'm awake because this guy had the zoomies that woke me up just in time for way too early. Look at that cute cat. And one viewer shares this photo and says they are up way too early because Luna and Samson wanted to play. Okay, Luna and Samson, we need to get to bed. Up next on Way Too Early, give me a break. We'll tell you about the massive Kit Kat candy bar heist in Europe last week, yes. And coming up on Morning Joe, the latest from the Middle East as fighting continues across the region after more than 1 month of war with Iran, including a potential U.S. ground invasion. Plus, the ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee, Democratic Congressman Adam Smith of Washington State, will be a guest. Morning Joe is just moments away.
The UPS store is more than just a shipping store. We're the packet, ship it, guarantee it store. We know running a small business takes a lot of grit. So we're the We've Got Your Back store. Because when you trust us to pack it and ship it, we guarantee it. So it'll get into the hands of your customers safely. Which is why we're the Stand By Our Work Guaranteed store. This Easter season, get 20% off packing at the UPS store.
Life, diabetes, there's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna, bring on the day.
Spring, the unofficial new year for tool people. New jobs, new projects with quality tools from Harbor Freight. We've got the savings to start your new year off right. So come celebrate spring at Harbor Freight. And Doug.
Thank you both for coming in. I'm a bit worried about Doug Jr. I know how important Liberty Mutual is to your family.
They customize car insurance to save people hundreds.
Right. Well, Doug Jr. keeps writing this.
This Jr.
Well, at least he spelled insurance right?
He did not.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. This little light of mine has been dark for quite some time. Then I let in the light to help see more of the light inside of me.
I needed more from my antidepressant, so my doctor added Caplyta, proven to provide greater relief from depression symptoms than an antidepressant alone, building on my progress without starting over. Weight gain and reported sexual side effects were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, dry mouth, feeling tired, and diarrhea. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor about Caplyta.
Help see more of the light inside of me.
On our podcast, Clock It, we are positioning ourselves at the intersection of culture and politics.
Clock It is where we talk about what we see and hear in the news so you can start to clock it too.
Clock It with Simone and Eugene. Listen now. New episodes drop Thursdays.
The first crew to head to the moon since 1972 is preparing for launch later this week on the Artemis II space shuttle. The entire mission will cover over the span of 10 days and involve flying around the moon without landing before returning to Earth. So far, the forecast looks favorable for a Wednesday launch. The crew of astronauts includes the first woman, first Black person, and first Canadian to pass over the moon. They are tasked with making detailed observations of the far side of the moon, including surfaces not yet seen before by human eyes. Project Hail Mary continues to dominate the box office, scoring over $50 million in its second weekend alone. The sci-fi thriller starring Ryan Gosling has now brought in over $300 million globally, making it the highest-grossing film of the year and the biggest hit ever for Amazon MGM Studios. Pixar's Hoppers came in second, bringing in just over $12 million for its fourth weekend, adding to a